Did you believe territorial disputes should be resolved through diplomacy or military action? Hi viewers, did you know that the Bakassi Peninsula is a region of strategic importance? The region is rich in oil reserve, it is a paradise for fishermen and many more. But behind its serene facade lies a tale of power struggles, territorial disputes, and the relentless pursuit of resources. Bakassi was once the center of the disputed sovereignty between Nigeria and Cameroon. This video put back in perspective a point in history when tensions escalated between Nigeria and Cameroon, and both nations found themselves on the brink of an armed conflict. For the first time in the region, brothers were about to fight each other, in fulfillment of an African proverb which says, "When two brothers fight, strangers inherit their properties." In the year 1994, a major showdown of military strength was on the brink of occurring. The armed race between Nigeria and Cameroon had begun. Nigeria saw an increase in her defense budget and also their Cameroonian counterparts, as both nations struggled to put their force in order, fearing a potential strike from the other side. For the Nigerians, losing the oil-rich region to Cameroon was never on the menu. The government of the day felt it was an opportunity to show her might as a regional power. But there was a problem, and it was France. A staunch supporter of Cameroon, which was once its colony. The African Union also voiced their opinion that the situation in Bakassi is dire, and that both Nigeria and Cameroon must exercise restraint and seek a peaceful resolution to the conflict. But things was only to get worse, as in few months there had already been a heavy movement of troops and military hardware to the region from both sides. The Cameroonian troops also had taken defensive formations within the region. On the 16th of May 1961, the conflict in the Bakassi Peninsula will reach its confrontational point. A Nigerian gun vessel was patrolling down the coast of Bakassi when the Cameroonian gendarmes sighted them and opened fire. In a split of that moment, it was as if the war had started. 5 gallant Nigerian soldiers were thrown overboard, with several wounded. Quickly, the Cameroonian government issued a statement that the Nigerian troops had opened fire first on sighting a Cameroonian vessel. As such, in defense, the gendarme soldiers had to return fire. As the embers of the conflict grew bigger, it became impossible to ignore the human toll of the conflict. Families were torn apart, livelihood destroyed, and generations displaced. These are the untold tragedies hidden behind the geopolitical chessboard of the Nigerian-Cameroon conflict. In order to understand what the people of Bakassi experienced, just imagine the anguish of a fisherman forced to abandon his ancestral waters, or the fear of a child caught in the crossfire of warring nations. If you could under this, only then can you understand the evils of war. Nigeria, the perceived giant of Africa, felt insulted, and a roaring Nigerian troops entered into the Cameroonian town of Jabin with little or no opposition. The angry troops pulled down the Cameroonian flag, replacing it with a large Nigerian flag. The following month, more troops entered into the town of Concha, which caused a lot of panic in the capital city of Yaoundé. The death of the 5 Nigerian soldiers won't be forgiven easily. This was shown in the decision of the Nigerian government to deploy soldiers from Calabar as they moved to occupy Diamond Island in the Bakassi Peninsula on November 17, 1993. On sighting the troops, Nigerians staying in the region were jubilant at their triumphant entry. The Cameroonian government, fearing a direct confrontation, tactically withdrew its troops as they sought for a diplomatic solution to the conflict. It was as if the Nigerian war machine had been activated, ready to crush anything on its path. Share your thoughts. What do you think are the long-term consequences of the Bakassi conflict on the people living in the region? Don't forget, the cause of the conflict can be traced back to the fact that after the independence of both countries, a temporary solution was used instead of a permanent one in the region. Did you know when Nigeria got her independence from the British in 1960, the maritime boundaries between Nigeria and Cameroon were not clearly demarcated, and in the year 1961 the northern part of the region had voted to remain with Nigeria, while the southern region had chosen to join Cameroon. This decision would later lay the foundation for a future conflict in the region. The Nigerian commanding officer, in a mission statement to the Nigerian troops stationed at the peninsula, had said, "We cannot allow Cameroon to encroach on our territory any longer. Bakassi is rightfully ours." The Cameroonian government also stated that they won't back down, and that the International Court of Justice would decide the fate of Bakassi, not the Nigerian military. As such, in 1994 Cameroon headed to the International Court of Justice. Off they went, like two siblings fighting over the last slice of Accra. Because nothing says I'm right, you're wrong, like letting a bunch of lawyers settle your family feud. This was a bold step that will help to calm the tension in the region. But during this time the Nigerian military had been already strategically positioned at the Bakassi region, with the Cameroonians doing the same. Did you know that the Nigerian government, in a move to show its legitimacy over the disputed region, will in 1997 quickly create the Bakassi local government, when they realized the dispute case at the International Court of Justice wasn't going in their favor? This was a strategic move to show government control over the disputed region. As time rolled on, with both nations on the brink of all-out war, it was clear that the Nigerian government was already bent on using her vast military might to make Cameroon succumb to her interest in the region. As such, more military hardware was pushed to the Calabar region and ICOM axis of the state. Vast of Nigerian soldiers were sent from the famous Doden Barracks, which is one of Nigeria's biggest bases located in Lagos State. Also, there was a massive movement of war tanks from the 3rd Armored Division located in Jos, Plateau State. The Nigerian military also carried out series of military drills around the region in a show of force. The Nigerian leadership felt such a move will serve as a deterrent to the Cameroonian forces and their allies. Nigerian fighter jets occasionally carried out drills hitting targets along the border region. The Cameroonians could see the war-ready morale of the Nigerian forces. But a major event will occur which will lead to a twist in the tussle for the Bakassi Peninsula. And it was the Nigerian Civil War, which started on the 6th of July 1967. During the Civil War, General Gowon was the Nigerian head of state. As the devastating civil war ravaged through the eastern part of Nigeria, an event which produced many distorted versions concerning the ownership of the Bakassi Peninsula will occur. To this day, many still feel General Gowon single-handedly gave out the Bakassi Peninsula to the Cameroonians in a bid to enclose the revolting Biafrans and win the war. But that wasn't what happened precisely. The Bakassi border town was strategic for the shipment of arms to Biafra territory during the war by the Biafran army. The Nigerian army was finding it difficult to secure the maritime line. Each battalion that had been sent to achieve this had failed due to the terrain. The peninsula's strategic importance to the survival of the Biafran nation couldn't be overemphasized. As such, the government of Gowon had to do something to win the war at all cost, by telling the Cameroonian government to take charge of her territory, without minding the price. It was a decision which would give the Cameroonian government more claims to the oil-rich region. The Nigerians by this time were already distracted by the civil war which was raging on. Cameroon took the opportunity to strengthen its presence in the disputed Bakassi region by moving in more troops. To show how important the Bakassi Peninsula was, it became a center of international attention when a cargo plane carrying weapons for the Biafrans under unknown circumstances went down and burst into flames, killing all its crew members on board. It was later revealed that the cargo plane was heading for Enugu State. There were speculations that it had been shot down by the Cameroon defense system. When the news broke out, it was clear Gowon had made up his mind that the region actually belongs to Cameroon and they should protect the region from foreign interference, which means the Biafrans. All this was in a bid to dislodge the already encircled Biafrans from their only connection to the outside world. The then president of Cameroon, President Adhijo, who had been the first president from 1960, knew he had his big chance. Quickly he acted on the acknowledgement of General Gowon that the territory was theirs to protect, and as such ordered more soldiers into the region. With bulk of the region in the hands of the Cameroon soldiers, it became more difficult for the movement of relief materials and also weapons to the Biafran troops who were gallantly holding off their Nigerian counterparts with almost bare hands. Due to the war-ready military hardware that were deployed to the region, the Nigerian intelligence were convinced that Cameroon intended to set up a military base in the region. But little could be done about it. Due to the civil war in Nigeria by 1970 they had ended and Gowon had defeated the Biafran rebellion. His gaze now would be set on Cameroon. The Nigerian economy had been badly damaged and it needed rebuilding. That was when the Nigerian government realized once more that the Bakassi region was rich in oil and gas, and the decision made during the civil war has come to haunt them. Nigerian intelligence gathered that France, which is Cameroon's biggest ally, had sent in troops into the region. The French replied, claiming it only positioned 2 attack helicopters and about 15 paratroopers in Cameroon and not the Bakassi region to protect her interest. The Nigerian head of state, General Gowon, was already convinced that only a show of force would make the Cameroonians succumb, but just when he was preparing for a major deployment of Nigerian troops into the region, he was overthrown in a tactical and bloodless coup by General Murtala Mohammed. During an international meeting outside Nigeria, the new head of state wasn't pleased with Gowon's handling of the Bakassi crisis and felt Gowon had chickenly gave out the region to Cameroon. As such, he disdained the agreement made by Gowon and openly refused to ratify it. Instead, he sent in more troops to the region. He knew the Nigerian army needed rebuilding after an intense civil war. But he wasn't going to let Cameroon have the peninsula. In 2005, there was a military standoff at the border again, and over 70 lives were lost. The world was watching, and something was needed to be done quickly. The Nigerian army vowed to remove the Cameroonian base from the region, boasting of her size. Actually, Nigeria military could swallow Cameroon military in a bit, but wars are not won that way. There were several confrontations between both forces during patrols, and shots were often being exchanged. The civilians were often being made to bear the brunt from the tussle of both nations. Cameroon will finally smoke the beehives when the gendarmes attacked the riverine village of Abona in Cross River State, causing panic as over 3,000 refugees fled from the invading soldiers in their communities, which led to most people losing their lives. But do you believe territorial disputes should be resolved through diplomacy or military action? Because there were accounts of fishermen's boats being set ablaze and many homes destroyed. The Nigeria government saw this act by the Cameroon as a justification to move troops into the region. As such, Nigerian troops took over the peninsula, forcing Cameroon soldiers to a retreat. Even the presence of the French paratroopers couldn't deter the Nigerian soldiers this time. They saw the vast Nigerian troops and realized they had a better case at ICJ, and off they went. Revisiting the case. After so much legal tussle, the International Court of Justice ruled in favor of Cameroon, to the dismay of many Nigerians who felt a level of injustice. But Nigeria had no intention of offending the international community. As such, a plan was made by the government to resettle the Nigerian citizens in Bakassi. Gradually, the process of demilitarization began, and on the 14th of August 2009, Nigeria officially withdrew from the Bakassi Peninsula. But the problem was now even bigger than both nations. The people of Bakassi, who had grown to see the region as their home, won't just accept to be pushed out of their ancestral land. As such, malicious groups were formed by some outlaws, and this group will be ready to attack both the Nigerian and the Cameroonian troops stationed in the region. Even the retreating Nigerian soldiers were not spared by the militants. Some major event unfolded before the Nigerian government formally handed over the peninsula to the Cameroonians in 2007. In one particular incident, Cameroon patrol soldiers came under heavy attack and over 21 soldiers were killed. Initially, the Cameroon government and intelligence felt the attack was carried out by Nigerian troops. It was as if the peace plan in the region was falling apart. However, the militia group in the region later claimed responsibility for the attack, which helped not to jeopardize the peaceful handover of the region back to Cameroon, according to the International Court of Justice ruling. Several years later, the people of Bakassi still feels the pain of being relocated from their perceived ancestral home. As we close the chapter on the tumultuous history of the Bakassi Peninsula, let's not forget the lessons learned and the stories shared. The journey doesn't end here. Your voice matters in shaping the narrative. What are your thoughts on the decision of the International Court of Justice? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Thank you for watching, and until next time, stay curious and keep exploring.